And we're rolling sound.
Camera and tell us the program that you are with.
Okay, one quick question.
Let's go once more.
One more time without the hi. Hi, my name is Valerie. Wait, I needed to do my last name right.
My name is Ahila. I'm a film production major.
Speeding. Take it away.
Okay, so my name is Carla Luna Cantu.
My name is Optin Haydari.
Jason Phillips. I'm a film and television production major.
So Jason, tell us how you got here.
In high school, I was a really anxious student, and I'd make comedic short films on a YouTube channel. And over time, I just used film to deal with my stress.
My whole life I wanted to tell stories. When I was 5 years old, I think the first thing I wanted to be is a writer. When I was in 8th grade, I realized that I wanted to be a filmmaker and that I wanted to study film.
When I was back in high school, I went through like a slight identity crisis, thinking whether I wanted to pursue like a more traditional field, which was in my case like a medical field. I was really interested in biology at the time. And then like sort of like halfway through junior year, I realized that I wanted to do something a little bit more creative, and I wanted to pursue like a medium in which I could like express myself in.
I lied to my parents about what I was applying for. They thought I was going to be a lawyer, and then I applied to USC Film School secretly.
Growing up, I fell in love with acting, and then my sophomore year of high school, I decided to go behind the camera. And that's kind of where I found myself click and where I feel like I was alive. And for the first time, I was like, wow, this doesn't make me uncomfortable, this makes me excited.
The interesting thing, I guess, is just I decided that gaming was a good field to do that. Even though, like, to be honest, making games, you have to give a lot of the power over to the player.
Growing up in Mexico, I grew up in Monterrey, Mexico. None of the universities in the town I grew up had a film production program. So I started doing a lot of research. My high school didn't have a college counselor, so I pretty much created my own instructions on how to apply to a school here, and USC was my top choice. Eventually it happened, and then also convincing my parents, which was another whole ordeal.
When I got into the film school, I told my dad, and he was like, wait a minute, like, why do you want to go to California? And I kind of had to pop the question to him and be like, will you let me come to California and study film for the rest of my life? And he thankfully said yes after a long period of convincing.
I decided to apply to a few film schools, a lot of sociology departments because I wasn't sure what would pan. Then I came here and I was able to find my voice through filmmaking.
I applied with one of my films that I had made with my neighbor's camcorder and got in. Now I'm here.
The film in high school that really impacted me, that made me want to come to film school, was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The way that film was able to create such a intimate portrait of like loss in a relationship, using like techniques that can only be done in film, just made me think that of like how storytelling can become much more evocative and expressive than what I've been used to up to that point.
The Eternal Sunshine was a huge inspiration for me, but also Iñárritu, Alfonso, and Del Toro, which are the three big Mexican filmmakers, really inspired me because seeing them doing great things gave me some hope that it was possible for me to come all the way here and be successful and have a voice that was heard.
Mean Girls, I would say, is one of my favorite films, and everything Tina Fey has done is super inspiring to me.
There's this really abstract small game that I played when I was a kid, and it's called 30 Flights of Loving. It's made by this local LA indie developer who is basically a one-person development team, and he makes all of his games himself. He makes these like really short games, but they're beautiful. The interesting thing that he does is he does jump cuts in his games. There's like this cardinal or this golden rule in gaming in it, which is to never take away like the power of the player. The way he managed to sort of like loop around that problem and present itself as, you know, something that's art was extremely fascinating to me. And so I decided that this was the field I wanted to pursue.
Back when I was really young, the first movie I remember seeing that really made me fall in love with filmmaking was Titanic. I loved the epic love story between Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, and it really inspired me to go out and make larger-than-life pictures and movies that can emotionally connect to an audience and change the way you view the world.
big part of like college experiences nowadays, particularly too, are mental health crises, and I've certainly had my fair share where I felt overwhelmed and felt like I had no support here, and I felt lonely, and I felt difficult. It felt difficult to try to keep like moving on and going to class and like being positive and like not like kind of breaking down at any moment.
There was some mental health issues with friends of mine, and it made me really I had a difficult time like my first couple years, but the program was always my outlet and what made me the happiest.
I kind of learned how to have the strength and the coping mechanisms, and also the positive coping mechanisms, and also the support network to make me feel like not only welcome, but remind me why I'm really here and why I want to keep pursuing this.
I came as such an insecure filmmaker who I didn't know what I was doing my first couple years, and over time I became more confident and really into comedy and writing comedy and directing comedy and acting. And so film school has just made me into a really confident and self-assured person that I definitely wasn't before.
Never stop writing, never stop shooting films, always be creating, always write down all of your ideas.
My advice would be to follow your joy and to listen to the little bit inside of you that wants to be a director or writer.
When I was younger, I would think I was not talented enough and that I wasn't good enough and whatever I did was not gonna get me into film school, but I think the harder you work and the more you do, the better you're gonna get.
The biggest misconception about film school is that it's glamorous and easy.
And it's really not. It really does require, it's just the first step, and requires more hard work and more dedication. And that's true even if you don't come to USC, you go to any film school, or if you go to no film school. It all requires dedication, staying focused on your task.
A lot of my experiences come from the fact that I've actively reached out to people and I'm like, I want this, and then therefore I try to pursue it.
Working hard is gonna take you further than anything else. So if you're persistent and you keep trying, you're gonna get there and you're gonna do it.
If you feel something inside of you that's telling you to go to film school, go. If you feel it trying to tell you to be in the film industry, even if you don't get in, pursue it, because it's worth it.
People will always tell you that it's not possible, and people will try to limit you. And most of all, you will want to limit yourself, but just know that there are no limits. It's all in your head, and you can do whatever you want.